For years, Iran has been the greatest threat to peace in the Middle East. But as Chris Mitchell reports, the situation in the region is getting more complicated and more dangerous.
Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons and development of ballistic missiles could pose a lethal combination to the state of Israel. Russia's recent invasion of Georgia adds a new wrinkle to the picture. Many analysts see this military move as a sign Russia again wants to be a major player in the region. It is also flexing its muscles with arms sales to Israel's enemies, Syria and Iran. Israel's situation isn't helped by its current political turmoil. Prime Minister Ehud Olmert has resigned and oversees a caretaker government, while Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni tries to put a new government together. And as the U.S. presidential campaign progresses, it's uncertain what, if anything, Israel and/or the U.S. will do about Iran's race to a nuclear bomb. But for years, Israeli leaders have said that Iran threatens not just Israel, but the world.
They are interested to export the Iranian Revolution and to hegemonize first the Middle East and then the entire world.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Joining us now from Jerusalem for a closer look at the dangerous situation in the Middle East is DORE. He's the former Israeli ambassador to the United States. And Mr. Ambassador, it's always a pleasure to have you on the 700 Club. Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure, Pat.
What about this? I understand the Russians are building a naval base in Syria. Syria has armed Hezbollah with maybe 40,000 missiles. And Iran is in the process of building a nuclear bomb. What is Israel going to do in response to all this?
Well, some of this is a return to Cold War patterns that existed before. You know, in the Mediterranean port of Tartus in Syria, that was where the Soviet fleet had its main naval base to basically try to neutralize the U.S. Sixth Fleet, which used to come to Haifa in Israel and still does. Clearly, the Russians are trying to reestablish their status as a great power. In Eastern Europe, they're somewhat blocked because NATO has been extended into the Eastern European countries. So the real great opportunity for the Russians to reassert themselves is in the area of the Caucasus, like areas like Georgia, and of course in the rest of the Middle East, in places like Iran.
They obviously want to have some kind of hegemony over the supply of oil into Europe. Do you think they were trying to get their hands on Middle East oil? Is it oil or just a presence?
No, I think oil is the name of the game. I think you correctly pointed that out. I mean, in the case of Georgia, you have the Russian pipelines that cross from the Caspian Sea area to the Black Sea to Turkey, then out to the west. That's one area. But of course, the other area is the Straits of Hormuz, where 40% of the oil of the world moves through in tankers. And that area is dominated by Iran. Therefore, we're dealing with a situation, both in the Caucasus and in the Persian Gulf, like the Straits of Hormuz, where the next American president is going to face a very difficult situation. And unless that is addressed with proper expertise, it'll be very difficult to talk about an American economic recovery if you have a deterioration in the security situation, either in the Caucasus, in the Persian Gulf, or in both.
Israel struck what looked like a North Korean-built nuclear reactor in Syria. Do you think that a preemptive strike is in order against what's going on in Iran?
Well, of course, I, like all my fellow Israeli colleagues, feel that we have to allow diplomacy and every other means possible to have its impact to try and stop the Iranian program. But if Iran refuses to cooperate with the international community, if Iran defies the decisions of the International Atomic Energy Agency and the UN Security Council, then clearly no one is taking the military option off the table.
I spoke with the head of Mossad a couple of years ago, and his forecast of when the Iranians would have a nuclear device seems to differ with some of the reports coming out of Washington. When do you think the Iranians will have a workable nuclear bomb?
You know, I'm only speaking from all the declassified material that's out there, but it looks like if you carefully follow the production of fissile material, of potentially nuclear grade fuel, that the Iranians should cross the nuclear threshold sometime early in the next U.S. administration, probably between 2009 and 2010. And that could have enormous ramifications for the balance of power in the world, for the price of oil coming out of the Middle East, and for the security of Israel.
Well, the Russians apparently are helping the Iranians with nuclear material. I guess they want to get a port down there in the Indian Ocean as well as some of the other things they have in mind.
Well, I think the expression warm water ports as a goal of Russian foreign policy has been there since the time of the czars. Clearly the Russians are looking to build an alliance with Iran to defeat the strength of the United States in the Middle East. Their hope is the United States will simply cut and run, get out of Iraq and have nothing to do with the Iranian problem, which is, again, not just a threat to Israel, but it's a threat to the Arab states in the Gulf, it's a threat to Europe, and it's a threat to the world.
Last question. We've been following Israeli politics relatively closely, and it seems to be things are somewhat in disarray as the prime minister has stepped down and Tzipi Livni has been appointed, at least by Kadima, in his place. How soon is there going to be an election and maybe settle things down?
Well, obviously, Foreign Minister Livni has to try and form a coalition. She only has a limited amount of time to do that. Each of the coalition members will make demands on her, particularly for their constituents, when the pie of available budgetary authority that's out there is going to be much more limited with the economic crisis. But should she fail in about a month and a half, then we'll probably have to go to general elections. Even if she succeeds, it'll be a very unstable coalition, and it would probably throw Israel into elections by mid-2009.
Would you like to make a prediction as to whether or not she'll get it together in the next 30 days?
That's a hard one. I think I'd rather predict the American presidential election.
Well, you have the floor. Would you like to do that for me?
Well, no, it's okay. I'm waiting for our time to run out. It was a fake offer.
Okay. DORE Gold, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.